what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
Cut the music. Cut the music on it.
He did, Jimmy. He did.
We don't play that. We don't play the intro out. We don't play it out after a loss, after a game, I'm not even going to call it a performance. A very tough loss here for the Boston Celtics over the border up in Toronto. Bobby's second home to the now 10-31 Toronto Raptors. The Celtics fall 110-97. Once again, can't crack 100 points in this game. Lose to a team that single-digit win team up until tonight, guys. I don't even know where to start with this one. If this was just, a blip in the season, would be kind of just passing over it. Would go on with our days.
Let's start here, Jimmy.
This is the norm right now. This is more of the same.
New norm. The new norm.
The new norm. Here we are. The new norm. What do you got, Bobby? You can start us off.
Minutes into this game.
Noah's itching to say something. But
I just had a question for the group, but go ahead.
Okay, you can
minutes into this game. I mean, let's just go right to the beginning. 15-5. You're down minutes into this game. The starting lineup, you roll it back out there. Noah and I kicked around the starting lineup change. I get why they didn't do it. I'm listening to the radio pregame. Joe's talking about, other teams shooting and what they're expected to be, and their shooting being what's expected to be. And then they come out, go down 15-5 with that starting lineup. And from that point on, it's dribbling off legs out of bounds, passing to nobody. And just about the worst defensive performance I've seen from them since 2023. Like this was awful.
So bad that we're running a poll. We're running a poll asking everybody if it's the worst loss of what is it, the year of the season.
The fact that there's competition for that, the fact that there's no clear definitive, this was the low point, says a lot about how this team, even though the faces look the same, is very different than the team we saw a year ago.
So here's the most concerning part. You go down 10 early. You're not shooting great for parts of this game, especially in the second half. You're not super energetic throughout much of this game. And you're still right there. It's like 8 to 10 points throughout. You're within 5-6 points for a lot of it. And as the game went on, the energy got worse. The effort got worse. And by the end of the game, you just completely faded. And the bench comes in, and Tatum didn't take a shot in the fourth quarter. And it's like,
what the hell is
what's going on here? So it's panic time. I mean,
there it is.
Ooh,
okay.
Come on, Bobby.
Hold on.
Something's wrong here.
It's officially panic time for Bobby.
It's one thing to miss shots. It's one thing to not be super energetic and filled with effort on the defensive end on January 15th in Toronto. But to never mount much of a pushback and then just to walk off the floor and shrug off another brutal loss. Now, I'm sitting there, Noah, on Sunday, and we're hearing Joe talk about...
Hold on one second. Okay, thank you. Now you can go.
So I'm sitting there, Noah, on Sunday, and I'm listening to Joe talk about mistakes with effort, which was his big spin after that game. And I'm willing to accept it, right? It was cartoonish how ridiculous the mistakes were in that game. They're missing layups. They're just doing these crazy things. The 5-second violation. It's like, all right, you win that game. I'll write it off, even though the CJ McCollum shot almost went down, and we're almost talking about a even bigger disaster right now. I'm willing to sit there and believe that. Why? Because I'm always willing to sit there and believe these guys. They're taking the right shots. They're doing the right things. The right intentions are there. And then you come out and do this. After 2 days off, Al said they practiced on Monday. We weren't there. I don't know what they did over the last 2 days.
I think that's the big scandal, Bobby, that they practiced when we weren't invited.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I don't know what's going on.
Team
here.
only practice.
I really don't.
Players only practice. Unbelievable.
It was shocking to watch tonight. I'm sorry. And I
Noah had a
listen,
question.
credit to the Raptors. They played hard. We always got to do that, right? But you were one of the
Sure.
great teams of all time last year. You come into this year and it's all repeat. We're doing it back to back. And this is what you're doing in January. Like, it can get better. I'm not saying they can't win the championship this year, but this is not how you set up that run.
Noah had a question off the top.
She
though.
did.
My question, so I realized that I normally rewatch the games when I get home, but without volume.
You don't have the stomach to do it now, right? You don't have the stomach to do it now.
No,
right?
I'm home right now, so I didn't need to rewatch it. Normally, like when I go, we're at the Garden, we're on the road, whatever. To me, like this was completely different than any other loss that we've seen. And I don't know if it's because watching it unravel for the first time on my couch just hits different than being there in person, or if this was like another level of just.
This is called
I don't even know the word. Was this another level for you guys, or
you
did
get
this
to see
feel
it in HD? That's you get
yeah.
the
And I'm at my
personal.
parents' house, and they have like a really
The
big
difference
TV,
is, Noah,
so
they
it's
never
even
pushed
worse.
back. They never mounted a comeback resistance.
Yeah, I don't even.
Never
I'm
swung
not
the other
even
way.
talking about that. I'm talking about like just how rattled they look. Like I'm not talking about schemes or individual performances or effort. Like they just looked rattled. Like
You know what?
I'm a former basketball player on a really bad high school team that was consistently playing against really good teams that were destroying us. I saw a lot of myself in their faces. And I was like, that's like, I never want to relate to these guys because they should never feel like the way I felt when I was losing the break.
That's the scary thing, Sherrod. And John brought it up a week or two ago. Is this effort and focus, or are they just not as good this year?
They look like a bunch of strangers out there. Like if you didn't know better, you think that they completely brought in a new cast of characters this year who had not played with each other, and they're trying to figure out how to play with one another. This looked they've had levels of disjointedness throughout the season, but this tonight was on a different level. They looked as if they were not together. They looked like they lacked focus as a group. And the result was that even when they were close, this was one of the few games where they never made anyone watching this game feel as though they were going to win. At no point did you feel that they were going to just turn the tide and swing the game in their favor, because no one was making multi-effort plays. No one was doing the little things that we've seen from the Celtics in the past that have been able to basically be kind of the starter. That moment, there was no Jaylen Brown big dunk or block or steal or Tatum, just dagger type three. They were basically running in the mud the entire game. And Toronto, no disrespect to Toronto, but they didn't play a great game. They played a decent game. They played a pretty good game, but it wasn't as if they did anything exceptionally well in this game to win. And that's the scary part to me. Yeah, but they put up 110 on a Celtics team that was not playing a lick of defense. That's not saying anything. Yeah. That's what you do when you're a 10, 15-win team. You put up 110 points on a team that doesn't play defense.
Celtics, they lost what? 14
10
or
in 16
a row coming in this one or something like that.
Yeah, and I think they lost like 10 or so in a row against the Celtics. I mean, it was a ridiculous run. But the bottom line is this: there is a level of play that we know
28th ranked in defensive rating, Toronto Raptors, 119.4.
So in other words, this is not a very good team, obviously. The record indicates that, and you can go down the data, indicates the same thing. But the thing that's jumping out to me about this team, this Celtics team, is that they don't seem to have any sense of urgency. And I get it. It's January, and you're not supposed to be going all out. But what they're doing, this isn't even like average effort, average sense of urgency. They're not playing with any type of passion or energy or focus or the kind of things that we have come to expect from this team because of the players that they have. I'm curious, and we may get into it later, but if they were to make a change with that first group, what would you switch out? And we can get back to that later because I don't know what Mr. Toscano has on his playlist for us. But
I'm playing the hits tonight, baby. We're gonna go down. We're gonna try to get into it. I think the Celtics may have even started to break Noah a little bit.
No! No,
For the
Jimmy,
first
no.
time.
Say
For
it ain't so, Jimmy.
For the
Say
first
it ain't
time,
so.
I think for the
What does
first
that
time,
mean?
I think they're starting to break you. Like, I just think that you can't. You're on the far left of the panic meter for a reason, but I think
There's a the reason why she has the green goggles on.
exactly.
In the
But I think even you have to admit, Noah, that what we've seen since December, they're 12-9 since December 1st. This is a team that's playing slightly above 500 basketball, and they're eking out wins in some of these wins. I mean, they're very close to losing that Kings game, which is not the Kings game. They lost the Kings. They lost to the Kings. They just barely beat the Pelicans, a team that had 8 wins on the year. And then they lose to a 9-win Toronto Raptors team. So
And then
even
Also now a net negative in January.
And then they've got 5 of their next 7 games. 5 games in 7 days, which is a brutal stretch they're about to hit.
yeah, against some good quality teams. The Magic on Friday. You're playing a good Magic team at your worst right now. I mean, the Celtics will most likely be favored in that game because they're home and they're the Celtics. But I am not going to be a betting man on the Celtics Friday night against a Magic team that, has had success against them. Then they play the Hawks, a team that can beat you on any given night. Then they go on the road. They go out west for a 4-game road trip out west. Warriors, Clippers, Lakers, Mavericks. So all tough teams. And again, maybe the road will help them out. We thought it would, a week or so ago. And, we're dealing with, a similar show that we've had recently after some disappointing losses. So when I say they broke you, Noah, what I mean by that is I think that, you're starting to see some issues with this team, not just one-offs, but some things that are cause for concern, whether it's, I'm not saying if it's X's and O's, but at least maybe in the way that they're showing some of the effort out there and the way that they're not playing defense. And Bobby's been hammering this one for a while. Lack of defense. It's starting to show because they can't save themselves on the offensive end right now. Those threes are not falling at the rate that they were earlier in the year, where they could get away with maybe taking the foot off the gas on the defensive end. Right now, it's the worst of both worlds. It's the shots aren't falling, and then on the defensive end, guys are scoring any way they want. I mean, Jakob Ertl tonight was unbelievable.
Ertl,
yeah, Jakob Ertl was unbelievable tonight. Jacob, damn it.
Every time I have to say that guy's name, I come up with something different.
He was unbelievable tonight. Did he miss? I don't think he missed from the field. He was 8 for 8 at one point. And they're not getting stops, so they're not getting out in transition. And they're not getting out in transition, so they're not getting easy baskets. And then they're forcing threes. And then you should go 33% from 3 tonight or whatever it was, 35. And this is your recipe. So I'll throw it to you, Noah. Is there an easy fix here, or is it just getting back to basics? Is there something that stands out to you that they're not doing lately that they were doing to start the year?
I think they need therapy.
They need therapy. Don't we all, though?
I mean, no, for real, though, I guess the place where I probably won't change my previous tune is that I actually really don't think they weren't trying. I think they just have no confidence right now.
On defense?
I just here's my qualm with this effort thing, and then we'll move on from it because I'm not gonna defend this team after this game, but I just want to make my point clear. It's just there's no reason to think that with all the pressure that they feel right now and all the discourse around Jalen's bad year and the team not playing well and everything around it, that they were going to come out today and not try. I think you're seeing them like they're literally walking in mud, right? Like they can't make a shot. They can't make a read. They can't make a pass. Like a couple of times I was like, it looks like you literally put 10 guys on the court that have never played together before, who have no idea where anybody's going to be. And so I guess that just doesn't resonate with me to be like, oh, they came out and they just didn't want it, or like they weren't trying. That's fine if that's how you guys look. Brown doesn't care, all that. Like that's fine if that's how other people are seeing the game, and like we can just see it differently, and that's okay. But to me, it looked like a bunch of guys that just looked totally in their heads, and like Derek White missed a layup early in the game and sat there and was like holding his head. And you're not going to make a 3 after that. And he was way off the rest of the night, but it's like they're all so in their head. It doesn't look like they trust each other anymore. And their trust and their selflessness was like what the key was to this team. They never had like the best player on the floor who was so unstoppable that nobody could game plan for. It was like everybody who just knew where everybody was going to be. They made the right pass. They found the open man. And like there was just this machine that was perfectly in tune. And this machine now is perfectly broken now. And I don't,
Mm.
that's the way I see it. So I said it a while ago, I think the machine is broken. I think it's more broken than I thought. It's very broken. I have no idea how they're going to fix it, but
there's a play.
Fix it, Noah. Everyone's here so you can fix it for us. I'm just kidding. Bobby, go.
There was a play, Jimmy, second quarter. Jalen missed a layup in transit, and this was we're going to have to spend a while on Jalen after this game because I don't know what was going on there. But he missed a layup in transition, ran back. He's trying to play up tough on Boucher and get a steal or, make something happen defensively, and he overruns him. Boucher does a bit of a give and go there, and they shoot a three, and he just sort of shoves Boucher and gives the Raptors another possession after they missed a three there. And I posted it. I'm like, what was that? And
frustration.
To Noah's point, they don't look like themselves stylistically right now. Like everyone's tweeting me saying, "Oh, they're just jacking threes." I'm seeing them force a lot of bad twos in this game. Some very difficult mid-range shots. Derek did it. Jalen did it. The shots didn't fall early for them, and they, I like that they went to the post early, but then they're trying to do some stuff in between, and they're forcing tough shots, and they're turning it over, and they just look completely outside of their system, to Noah's point there. So I do think that's part of it. But, and I'll put a lot on the players, but I'm going to put a lot on Joe too, who has pushed and pushed and pushed throughout this season that it's the offense. It's the offense. When we turn it over, when we don't offensive rebound, when we don't create the right shots, that's going to hurt our defense. I haven't heard him talk about defensive, or often at least, about defensive emphases, ways that they're tightening up on defense. I know they're trying to force more turnovers, and that's a priority this year. But when things have gone wrong, not only has he not stressed defense, and, we can defend when shots aren't falling, we can defend when things aren't going right offensively. He tried to make it sound like the defense was all right early this season because of where they ranked. And that's why I keep comparing this year to 2023. If you watched the game early this year, you knew that they weren't protecting the rim. You knew that they weren't consistently playing good defense. You knew that they weren't covering certain guys and just letting them shoot and heat up. I went back and watched that Pelicans game. First play of the game, Tatum just leaves Murray, lets him shoot a wide open practice three. And from that point on, he's blazing hot for the rest of the night. So this is coaching right now. It's effort. It's, the players always come first, right? But they have not set themselves up as a coaching staff to be able to rely on their defense when the offense isn't there. I think they focus way too much on offense. I think they focus way too much on shooting. And every single night for like 2-3 weeks, Sherrod, we've heard them say, "Oh, our shooting's not where it needs to be. Other teams are shooting lights out." At a certain point, you have to adjust. And they haven't done it.
But the problem, Bobby, is that when they talk about the shooting not being, where it needs to be, and that's why they're not being more successful, that's how they won a title. They were an above-average shooting team last season.
It's a different year, Sherrod. They're not the same team.
Well, Bob, but that's the part. But see, Bobby, that's the part that they're not embracing. Their lip service is saying that this is a different year, different team, but their play is not. They haven't embraced the fact that they are a team that, frankly, should be focusing more on defense, but they won a championship last season because they were able to shoot at a ridiculously high level, and their offense oftentimes dictated their play defensively. So keeping that theory in mind, if their offense isn't great, their defense is probably not going to be great. They have always been a team, and Bobby, you've been around this team long enough to know they far too often allow their ability to make shots affect how they play defensively. When they're making shots, their defense all of a sudden, and that's who they are. And right now, this is the thing that I think a lot of people are not kind of gravitating towards understanding. The Celtics right now have become an average team shooting the three ball. And when you're an average team that shoots as much as they do, you're going to win a lot of games, but you're not going to be a great team. You're going to consistently fall short of being great because you are not doing what when you've been great, you did, and that has knocked down a lot of shots. Look at Cleveland. The reason why Cleveland has the best record isn't because they've got this great defensive unit. It's because they're, as a team, shooting over 40% for three-point range. When you're shooting the three that good, it does have a positive impact on what you do on the defensive end of the court. And so, while I don't like the idea that this is a team that has to shoot the ball well to feel great about their defense, it's who they are. It's who they've been. And if we're trying to pretend as if all of a sudden Joe Mazzulla is going to get in a lab and just start locking in on what they're doing defensively, that goes against everything that he's done up to this point. He has been a coach that has gone chips all in on being a great three-point shooting team. That's why they shoot more threes than any other team in the league ever. But when they're shooting at pretty average percentage, like 35, 36 as a team, it's no coincidence that a year ago they were like, what, top 5, I think, in three-point percentage, and now they're like 14, 15,
They're
middle of
number
the
2,
pack.
yeah.
So when you're shooting that well, you win a championship, and then all of a sudden you become an average three-point shooting team, which is where they are this year, essentially. You're going to be very good, but you're not going to be great. And the expectation level for this team is to be great. That's what championship teams, that's the level that they hold themselves to. And the Celtics are showing signs of consistently being a team that comes up short of meeting the mark that they've set for themselves. And to your point, Bobby, if they're going to turn this thing around, it does have to become almost like a mental shift where you become more all about your defense than your shot making. But that's not happening, Bobby. And because they won a championship last year, playing the way they are now, there's a belief that they can just at some point get back into that rhythm and everything will be okay. I'm not sold on that because I just think that the rest of the league is made up considerable ground quickly. And the Celtics, to your point, Bobby, I don't think are adjusting to the new world that they're around. And that has created a new normal, unfortunately, for the Celtics, that they're going to win a lot of games, but they're going to lose a lot that they would normally win because they simply haven't adapted to the changing environment that they're playing in now.
All right. Before we get into that a little bit more, we're going to tell everybody about our good friends at Prize Picks. Xanis isn't here, but he's got something to say about our friends at Prize Picks.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. It's NFL playoff time, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last few weeks of football action with Prize Picks, the best place to win cash while watching the playoffs. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot up to win 1,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks.
Prize Picks, and right now on Prize Picks, college football free pick, the Natty free pick. Woo-hoo. Will Howard projection discount, 99% off for the Natty. Can Will Howard throw 1 yard? To celebrate the Natty, Prize Picks discounted Will Howard to 0.5 pass yards for the big game. This free kick expires at kickoff on January 20th. Find it on the college football board now. Will Howard, going from 240.5 pass yards to 0.5 pass yards. So that's a free pick, guys. So download the app. That's your first pick right there, right? And then you build from there, and maybe you hit on a few, and you turn that into something more, and all of a sudden we're rolling here. So shout out Prize Picks. Okay, a lot of frustration in the chat, a lot of frustration on the panel tonight. As
what are your thoughts, Jimmy? We haven't heard too much from you.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. When your parents used to tell you that, I'm disappointed because I know what this team is capable of. It's primarily the same group of guys. They're finally all healthy and playing together. This is the starting lineup that's giving you these issues right now. It's another game where all the starters are in the negative. Tatum was a -1 as your best starter, and your best player.
Derek White, my God.
Derek White, we could do a whole segment. We should do a whole segment on Derek White because he's been somebody that's been uncharacteristic of who we know Derek White to be. And I'll pull up the stats here. Derek White today, 6 points, 2 of 9 from the field, 1 of 7
that
from
plus
3.
Minus, Jimmy.
0 steals, 0 blocks, 2 turnovers, and a -29.
Ouch!
A -29 that led the Celtics. Jaylen Brown came in second.
They pulled them 3.5 minutes into the first.
Yep.
Yeah. Something's off with Derek White. There's no reason to believe it's an injury. It's just, if it's a mental thing right now, I'm not sure what it is, but these guys aren't in sync. And Sherrod, you mentioned the Cavs earlier. Cavs are one team that comes to mind. Thunder that we just saw came to mind. A team that they're just clicking on multiple levels that we saw the Celtics as last season, right? It just felt like the Celtics were on another level. They were, whether it was ball movement, whether it was playing two-way basketball, whether it was the defensive side of the things, maybe it was offense leading the defense, Sherrod. And if that's the case, if this team gets so down on their luck when the shots aren't falling, then it's hard for them it's hard for anyone to defend them being called soft, because that's the mark of a mentally weak team, is if you get so down on yourself because the shots aren't going in or offense isn't clicking the way you want, where you're just not putting in that effort on the defensive side. And one of the commenters said it. Shout out to Mitch Goudreau. They desperately need to stretch of good shooting games. I do think the effort combo is real because half of defense's effort, lack of shot making, is hurting their confidence in all aspects of the game. I mean, maybe that's simplifying it. That might be simplifying it a little bit, but I still think there's some truth to it. Where if everything's going great for you, sure, everything's awesome. Everything's great and everyone's clicking and your wins are coming. But when shit starts to hit the fan, or when teams are playing a little bit harder against you because you are the defending champion, how do you respond to that? And right now, over the last month and a half, the response has been, it's been less than anything you'd expect from a team like the Celtics team, Bobby.
Yeah, and we keep talking about the guys who aren't playing on the same level this year, and they're basically just standing pat, hoping things get better. And I get it, right? Because it's half a season, you're coming off the championship. This stuff worked for you last year, so why shake it up? And again, Noah and I discussed maybe flipping Porzingis and Al. The numbers say you should probably take a look at that. But those guys have played, 10 games together now, the starters. So I get why they don't want to rush to something like that. Porzingis looked pretty good early in this game, by the way, probably a lone positive tonight. But, Hauser, what are you doing there? Like we've talked about that all year. It's been a very underrated part of their struggles this year, is how he hasn't generated much of any momentum this season, whether due to injury, regression, whatever it is. They keep burying Keita. I get it. Luke's been awesome. The net rating's unbelievable with him out there this year. He's stacked good game after good game. Even in this game, he's a +7. But you've taken a dynamic away from yourself that was a nice part of your attack early this season. Walsh got sick. We haven't seen him since. Peterson had that good stretch. Haven't seen him since. Tillman, haven't seen him in 2 months. So, what are you doing rotation-wise, lineup-wise? You're basically running the same thing out there every night, getting the same results for a couple weeks now out of those rotations.
We call that madness. We call that insanity.
You're not doing anything differently. And, throwing it back to the Brad days, Sherrod, he wouldn't have done this. We would have seen a little tweak. We would have seen someone come off the depth end of the bench there in a game where they're not playing well, try to energize some stuff. But whether it's like the shooting approach or the defensive approach and the lineups, Joe's just standing there hoping it all fixes itself. And it's not.
Go ahead, Noah. Jump in.
Well, I think part of it is that, just to go back to what I was saying earlier, because I want to make sure that was clearly communicated. But I don't think this is no. I think a couple people have messaged me privately here, so just clarifying. I don't think this is there's an issue in the locker room. I don't think that these guys don't trust each other off the floor. I think there's just a lack of rhythm right now, where it's a certain pass that you would normally know where the guy is going to be and you trust that they're going to be there. They're not going to be there right now. And so I just wanted to clarify that. But I think the reality is that normally you would be able to turn to somebody for an energy spark off the bench. And Pritchard has become not really an energy spark because you actually really need him. They're down by 7 every time he checks in now because they've been starting so slow. But there isn't that other guy that you trust on the bench. That's just, I don't know if that's a reflection of Joe's coaching or if it's a reflection of that unit. But both of those things could be true. But there isn't a guy right now that could swing a game from that bottom 7 guys in the rotation.
And that's where you start to look at the front office.
So it's possible where then in the next 3 weeks, they said from the beginning, they very well may make a move. They wanted to see how the first half of the year went. They could foresee that there could be issues with bringing everybody back. Everything that they warned us, kind of we see it. It's the same team, but it's not the same team, right? They definitely should make a move before the deadline. They're going to do something. And so Yeah, I think that we're probably going to see them go get a guy that can be a game changer off the bench. And that's more than I expected, honestly. A month ago, I wouldn't have thought that was necessary. But now I think this is the kind of game where you do need somebody to check in and turn
But how?
tides. Like, I think Alani Walker could come in and maybe give you a spark.
That's the guy.
I know we always go back to him because he was
That looks
here
like
for
a bad
camp.
decision in retrospect. No, I letting him
Wow,
go.
that's going to
But
be
he's
a
not
hell of
bad
an
now.
apology cam for you two if that happens.
What
It'll be a
I
great
liked
apology
him.
cam. No, it'll be a
I'll
great
do
one.
it.
Go on.
I don't. Yeah, I didn't like.
Yeah,
I
you
didn't
will.
like the player
But
at the
my-
time, but
But the point is that like, I think you have to still remember that all of this has been 5 weeks of bad basketball. And in the scheme of what we know about this group, like, it's just not that much. It's really not. It's not like they came out of camp and they were unfocused and they weren't taking things seriously, and things have been getting worse and worse, and now they're below 500. Like, it's really just been since the end of November. It's a December to mid-January thing.
the
But-
point
but-
is when they're
But it
when-
keeps going. Like,
Yeah,
when
but
they're
why-
moving the
nailing-
goalposts.
Right.
when they're
and I'm not-
nailing
and I-
threes, it's easy to look great. When you're not shooting good,
Well,
you
are you
should
going
be
to go
able to
back now
figure
to
out
the
a
start of the
different way to make it
championship, right? Like, they played well in the beginning of the year. They played well.
The
They started
issue,
6-3.
right? But what happens with this team right now is that when you are built the way they are, there's a certain margin of error that you have, and we have seen that margin of error steadily erode, get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the problem, and I think this is what you and Bobby are kind of pointing to, is the fact that there's no clear path towards this getting corrected. There's no point where you can see if they do this, then they'll just recalibrate themselves and get back to being the team we saw a year ago. And the only thing that seems to make any kind of sense of that happening is to add someone that can give them some juice, some energy off the bench. That's why Lonnie Walker makes a lot of sense, because in the little bit of time that we were around him and saw, it was clear this is a guy that can go get buckets. This was a guy that on those nights when no one is making shots, like, oh, I don't know, tonight, this might be a guy that can get you 15, 16 points in 10 minutes. And now all of a sudden, instead of losing by,
they need lineup flexibility, Sherrod, too, as much as they need energy. They just keep going to dribble big.
They need flexibility, but they also need reliability. And that's the issue. Like, Hauser is, he's able to be out there, but you can't rely on him now because he's got something going on with him, either physically or just mentally not where he needs to be. And then you start going down the line of the guys that come off the bench. They don't have a guy that is like just a natural born bucket getter, a guy like, I don't know, Lonnie Walker. That's literally what he does. And so the Celtics are at they're at that inflection point where they need to make a decision. How much are they willing to do to better position themselves to repeat? Because right now they've got a team that is good enough as they are now to be one of the last 4 teams stand. They should get to the conference finals with the group they have now. But if you want to give yourself a little bit more of a cushion to not be great and still have a great finish to the season, you need to go out and get somebody who can get you some buckets.
I don't want to make Lonnie Walker or whoever into somebody that's supposed to be like the savior of this team.
Right.
The players who are going to save this team are already on this team, and they're in the starting lineup. They're just not playing together right now. They're not playing connected.
So let's get to Tatum and Brown.
And the bench is a whole nother topic, Sherrod, and I agree with you. The bench needs a player like that because the bench has been exposed as far as I'm concerned. Non-athletic, not physical, kind of one-dimensional. They all can kind of do one thing if they're doing it that night, and if not, then you really don't have much of a bench. Lonnie Walker also does that one thing, which is score, but I think he does it in different ways, and maybe he can provide a little bit more physicality. Right. So that's a difference. That would be, if they can bring on a guy like that, that's probably the best their bench can get. But the real issues right now are the guys who are out there when the ball is tipped up at the beginning of the game. That's Tatum, that's Brown, that's Derek White, and that's Holiday. I'm going to give Porzingis a little bit more of a pass right now. He's coming back from, he's playing fine. And
he's been good.
We're going to play blame pie in a bit. Sorry, Noah. And Porzingis doesn't get a slice on mine today. But the rest of the guys in that starting lineup do. And Bobby, you want to go right into it? I'll let you start.
I just have a question. What was going on with Brown out there tonight?
No idea. He took 1 3-pointer tonight, which is unusual for a guy that on any given night could take 12. He takes 1 3-pointer. Is that what the defense is? Is the defense preventing him from shooting, or is he just disengaged out there? 10 points on the night, just nuts and, kind of dribbling into guys, stuff that we've seen before. But I'll toss up his line here. 10 points,
4
4 of 16 from the field, 1 3-pointer, made it, but 1 3-pointer, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, and minus 23. Again, that's in line with the rest of the starters in terms of plus minus. So
yeah, Tatum wasn't much better, 5 for 19 or something like that.
No,
so.
he wasn't. And does this have to do with, and then Tatum? Well, let's take on Brown right now, but I'm starting to wonder if the rotations are starting to screw with things too here, Bobby.
Yeah, and we've talked about that all year. Brown's talked about it being an adjustment. It's benefited Tatum, and I think it's the right move in that sense. And Brown has to find a way to adjust to some degree.
Tonight, I didn't think it worked, though.
No.
Tatum sitting to start the fourth, and that's kind of when things went from bad to worse.
But that's where Brown has to be able to get them
Right.
through that stretch a little bit. And that was the stretch that killed them in this game. The opening, they gave up 73% shooting in the third. But to open the fourth, you're letting Barnes go right to the rim for 2. Jalen's missing a shot inside, and you got the putback there, but they're just giving up basket after basket the other way, and all of a sudden you're down 10 by the time Tatum gets back in there. So Brown missed a free throw in the fourth. Tatum missed a free throw in the fourth. Like, as bad as this night looked for Brown, I think they're dealing with 2 different things right now. Brown's not getting as much of an opportunity early in these games to find his rhythm and get just acclimated to each game, see what teams are throwing at them, see what teams are throwing at him specifically, because obviously he's getting a lot of his stuff one-on-one out there. And for Tatum, and I wrote about this last week, he's playing so well that they need to adjust their approach a little bit to setting him up, not just finding the open guy and, putting the ball wherever the defense is directing it. They need Tatum to be central to this thing. And for him to not have a single shot in that fourth quarter when he's doing what he's doing this year, I know it goes against their approach a little bit, but this goes back to that conversation about this being a different year, this being a different team. Tatum, what did he shoot? 30 shots in that Pelicans game and 38 points, and he's just super efficient. He's getting all the looks he wants. He's basically carrying them to that win. I want to see something a little closer to that in this game, but the difficult part, now is that naturally pulls away from what Jalen gets in these games. And if Jalen's not going to get his shots or his rotation or his minutes, is this the kind of effort and enthusiasm we're going to get from him? He just looked checked out tonight, and I don't know if it's because of that, but he is not playing great this year, and it's hard to look at anything other than that rotation adjustment as a reason for why. And, I know he's had the right shoulder injury too in recent weeks, and that's probably hurt his efficiency a little bit, but his approach hasn't been great. And the defensive punch he brought to start this season hasn't quite been there either.
Yeah, honestly, it was a very strange performance by him. Like, he just looked so frustrated. He looked slow, like he was moving slow, which I don't know if it's because he wanted to be moving slow or if he's in pain or something else. But yeah, I don't really have answers on why Jaylen Brown looked the way that he did. And I thought he stood out, but I also thought that it was not too dissimilar throughout the roster. Like, it wasn't like everybody was on one level and he was on the other. And that's why I know we're going to do the blame pie, but that's why I have such a hard time with that exercise, because it does end up feeling like it's just hard to pull out one guy when you see 5 guys on the court that just aren't working together.
But they're the tone setters, Noah.
Then you go with 5 pies, 5 slices. That's the beauty.
Slices, Jimmy, not 5 pies. We're not trying to make a bakery. We're trying to.
And I don't want to pull too much blame
from
Tatum either, because his night might have looked a little better statistically, but he gave up that late putback to Pirtle. He wasn't
that's my point, right? It's really not about one player.
It's about 2 players. It's Brown and Tatum.
I think the guard play, like what Drew and Derek did last year versus this year, is pretty substantial. And again, this is like that's why I don't love the effort thing, because I think Derek is trying, but he's not who he was earlier this season and who he was last year. And I think it's really hard for them to I've maintained this from the beginning of last season, that he's underestimated in how much he impacts his team. And that's why their record has been worse when he sits than anybody else. And games like tonight, where he didn't sit, but he didn't have the impact that he normally has, like, that also has a substantial impact on this team. So I don't know. It's really hard to have answers because, again, like the only thing that makes sense to me is I feel like I'm watching something and I do think it's going to click, but I don't think we're going to have an explanation when it does. I don't think it's going to be because they changed the rotation or they signed somebody or something like that. It's like, it just looks to me like something that's out of tune, out of sync. And maybe it's never going to be fixed and they're going to blow the team up, or it'll be fixed in 2 weeks and we're going to remember this really bad 6-week period. And
we got some quotes coming out of the locker room in Toronto.
Finally.
Kristaps Porzingis talked after this game. Adam Himmel's said he was noticeably frustrated after this loss and said the Celtics had no spirit, no personality.
Facts.
He ain't wrong.
Facts.
He ain't wrong about that. Yeah.
Every team has ups and downs, he said. Just tonight, it feels like shit right now, and we played some bad basketball.
He's right.
Tatum went to the line in the fourth quarter, Bobby, but yeah, there's no official field goals there, and went into the game with 8 minutes left. Obviously subbed out with the rest of the starters with about 2 minutes left.
How can that happen?
How much of it is on
coaches,
him?
how can that
50% from the
happen?
line.
What's that, Noah?
They shot 50% from the line.
Yeah,
like,
they missed
a lot
that
of this is just
Porzingis.
that's why it's hard to break all this down. Is like I don't know.
But this is you go from the top down, Noah. Like, I think Tatum's playing well, but he can't just sit there and say, I'm putting up numbers. That there needs to be some continuity to the way that guys are playing. And I think he's taken the right approach. Like, Jimmy, I give him zero blame for this year. I think he's played great, Tatum. I think he's set a tone for the most part with his play. His defense could be better. Like, I do think he's coasting on his reputation on that end a little bit right now, and he's a guy who can be a difference maker on that end. So if there's any blame I'll give him, it's that. And then you go down to Brown. Like, I know it sucks. You got to adjust a little bit. Your roles change. Maybe you're more of a passer than a scorer this year, and I don't think that's the right way to use him either. So there's a whole discussion to be had there about how they're utilizing Brown, but he hasn't responded great in recent weeks. And then, you go down the roster, like White, I think there's some excuses there for how he's played, but hasn't been good. Holiday, like, it's tough for me to kill him. How much do they even use him? Porzingis coming back off the injury, actually playing decently. It's tough to blame him. And give me a break when people start blaming Cornette and how, like,
oh, here comes the Cornette defender. Give me a break.
Was anybody blaming Cornette?
Not on mine.
No, but that's what they usually.
Bobby's
he didn't play enough.
Fake haters.
He didn't play enough in this game. But if he played more, that would have happened.
In your mind, real quick.
Pushing agendas. Pritchard should have played more. So
there we go. If we're gonna toss blame around, before we officially slice up the pie, let's hear from our sponsor, Game Time. And then we'll slice.
This episode is also powered by Game Time, the best place to get tickets to the games, events, and concerts you want to see. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Game Time is filled with terrific features like all-in pricing, so you know exactly how much you're paying. No surprise fees at checkout. You also get panoramic views from your seats in the app, so you know exactly what you'll be looking at before you buy. Plus, a lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Once again, download that Game Time app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. What time is it? It's game time.
Time right now. Celtics game. Celtics Magic on Friday. You can get in for $121 right now, all in. Sit up with the true fans up in the balcony, but there's some great seats all around on the Game Time app. The cool thing about it is you can click on the seat, you can get a view of it, you scroll all around, take your pick, or you can do what I do. Wait it out, wait until the game starts, see if the prices really drop. Get in there for, a couple minutes into the first quarter. Hopefully the Celtics aren't down by double digits at that point, the way they're playing, and have a nice little Friday night. All right, blame pie time.
They better show up for that game, Jimmy, because they're going to lose that one if they don't.
They got to show up for that one. They absolutely have to show up for that one. Look at this.
Magic are a little banged up, though. Hawks are, too, so we'll see what happens. And obviously, it'll be a chance for Kata to finally play because they're going to have to do the Porzingis-Horford rest thing. So
Christian
maybe
thinks
get them going a little bit.
Christian thinks they can trade Brown and a second rounder for
I
the
just-
number 1 pick. I'm not sure about that.
Everyone's starting to come up with their crazy trades.
Here we go.
And I get it, because you have to do it eventually, probably something drastic to shake up the money on this roster. But you can't do that now. You're just not. So get it out of your heads. They're going to tinker on the edge of the roster, and it's going to be on the top 7 guys to figure it out here.
All right, it's blame pie time, Amit. Let's get this over with. Here it is. We're cutting it up. We have the pie sliced into 6 pieces already. These are your 5 starters.
See,
And Joe Mazzulla. The bench gets a break tonight. We're not blaming the bench for this game. This is a blame pie for the game. Pritchard had himself a game. Noah thinks
Horford was pretty
played
good
more.
tonight. I'll give him a little credit for that.
Horford
too.
airballed a couple of threes. You know, I wouldn't say
no,
he
these
was-
are the right folks. I only have 5 slices to give out tonight.
Okay. So you going, okay. I'll let you start, Sherrod.
Okay, well, let's just start with the guy that is not getting a slice tonight, and that's Porzingis. I thought he, of all the starters, I thought he was the one that actually looked like he knew what the hell he was doing out there most of the time. So Porzingis, you get a night off from the blame pie game.
All right. Yeah, there you go.
Now, Drew Holiday, I give him 10% of the blame pie just because I can't look at him and look at the rest of these guys and say that there's equal blame. That's just not the case.
Sure.
Joe Mazzulla, I give you 20% of the blame pie.
I like that.
Because, again, I think he's certainly part of the problem, but I don't think he is the problem. And so Derek White, I think Derek White also gets 20% of the blame pie. To me,
You're at 50.
So I'm 50. Jaylen Brown and Tatum each get 25.
Okay.
I think they're equally responsible for what we saw tonight. And frankly, their inability to impact the game in a positive way was a little bit more so than the other guys. So 25 Tatum, 25 Brown, 20 Derek, 20 Joe, and 10% for Drew.
All right, I'm going to go right now. I'm going to go 25 for Brown, 25 for White. That's 50. I'm going to go 20 for Tatum. I think Brown and White, I think they got to take a little bit more of the onus in this one tonight. They just combined for 16 points and just like completely blasé performance. Tatum, honestly, the fourth quarter makes me want to give him more than 20% because he just completely no-showed.
Yep.
But also Joe puts him in at the 8-minute mark, takes him out at the 2. I mean, he didn't really. I think Tatum should have
The rotation
took it upon himself
tonight.
Yeah, the rotation stunk, and that's why. Okay, so I'm at 50, 70. I'm gonna give 20 to Joe and then 10 to Drew. And I'm giving Joe 20 because of the rotations, because of the fact that I feel like this is an unacceptable. This is a team. Raptors team that there's really no excuse. And if you're Joe, you got to get your guys.
Game.
Yeah, you got to get your guys in a position to win this game.
Yeah.
Whether that's rotations be better, whether that's Tatum starts the fourth instead of how it usually comes in, whether that's Keita goes in there. I mean, again, the Raptors were killing them in the paint, and Keita's watching from the bench. I'm not saying Keita's
They're also
miracle
switching
man,
while the Raptors are killing them in the paint.
Right. But do something different, switch something up. If it's not working, then try something else. Like go double big more, since the guards are just not holding their own right now. So that's my pie.
I'm gonna go big slices. 33 Joe, 33 Brown. I'll go 23 White and like 10 Tatum for the fourth there.
Okay. The threes kind of threw me for a loop. I think there's a percentage going on. I think there's
that comes out to 100%.
Does it? Okay.
It does.
Cool. All right, Noah.
We're only eligible to blame people on this pie, right?
No, you can blame anyone.
If you want to get creative, you could do that. Yeah.
So none of you guys are blaming anybody, but it was an option.
We're I think majority.
We're just blaming these people.
No, you can blame anyone.
I mean, majority of people probably would have blamed
Noah,
people in this pie, but
cut the slice to who you want. Yeah, it's your pie, Noah. You baked it.
Okay.
Don't pull a Xanax and like give it out to like
I'm getting hungry.
Like injuries.
20% Joe.
Okay.
20% Derek. No. 20% Joe, 20% Derek, 20% Drew.
Wow.
It's 60.
20% true.
Thank you.
Not a lot of
20% Jalen, 20% Tatum.
Oh,
Yeah.
But
She
Derek
went the
White gets
Eagles-
no blame.
No, he got 20. They all got 20.
Oh, he
Porzingis
went
got
Oh,
20.
0.
okay. Oh, you went 2020. I got you.
She went 20
20
around.
for all.
Yeah, everyone gets a slice, equal
It took
slice.
you that long to just dish it evenly.
Yeah, you know, I didn't want to make it so obvious.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just
She's adding
it's
to
just
the
hard for
drama.
me to
Good for
not.
you, Noah.
It's hard
Noah
for me to
has
not see Jalen as
figured out a way to
outsized in this
skirt
one.
the blame pie game. We're gonna have to.
Yeah, no,
I
you know, honestly, can I?
Holiday threw the ball out of bounds at one point.
I just
too.
love
mean,
seeing Noah scoring when we play the game.
I
Honestly,
just
that's why I
think
love playing it.
it goes against the nature of basketball to blame.
Not my
individual
nature.
people.
Not if you're Jimmy Butler.
Oh, there you go.
I just want to
Anyways.
find joy. That's all. Joy in the pie
That's
game. I
it.
just want to find joy in the pie game. That's all I
Joy.
want.
Joy in the pie game.
these guys need to find some joy right now.
Bobby, who got the biggest slice for you? Oh, you gave it to the
It
two
was
stars.
Jalen and Joe.
Yeah. Oh, Jalen and
Yep.
Joe. So what is your beef with Joe?
Again, they come into this game after some brutal performances, and this is why this game's so frustrating, because you have a one-off Jimmy, and they had him last year, right? There was a Lakers game, there were those Hawks games, there were some moments last year where it's like, what was that? And then they'd come back out and just go blazing, full speed, great defense, great shots, blow out the next team, and they're right back on track. And you're like, oh,
Yep.
that was an aberration.
Yeah.
But we're talking about that Kings game. We're talking about a Pelicans game they should have lost. We're talking about countless games over recent weeks now. The Magic one without Tatum. Like, you can just rattle them off at this point. The Pacers one. And this is still what we're seeing. Like, there's no answer to the struggles we're seeing from the previous game. And I think looking ahead to Friday now, are you expecting them to come out locked in, looking amazing for that game? Maybe the fact that they have to change things up now because someone's going to sit helps them a little bit here just to break some stuff up. But that's why I go after Joe, because he's just been standing there saying, oh, the shooting's going to come around. Oh, these guys that we're expecting to not shoot as well, they're going to come back down to earth. And just rolling the same lineup out there every night, even though the starting lineup statistically has been really bad to start this year. So that's why I put a heavy blame on him, because he's just standing there. He looked lost at times on the sideline tonight, Jimmy. And he called a lot of timeouts, but there were no major adjustments to what was going on out there. And this is a game, as bad as it was, you're right there throughout, 5-6 points. And it went the other way as the night went on. It got worse. And no one difference coming off the bench. There's no rotation adjustments. You put out that lineup at the start of the fourth that Noah mentioned, went off the rails. I don't know what Joe was doing out there except just praying that it was going to get better. And the defensive stuff's starting to drive me crazy. Maybe not starting, because I've been talking about it all year.
It totally is, Bobby. You're beyond starting to.
Yep.
What is up? Noah, can you explain it to me?
No.
They're
can't.
They're just hoping guys miss.
I see you every day. You think if I could explain it to you, I would have done it by now?
She would have done that by now, Bobby. I guarantee.
Noah, save him.
I know it's
Help,
a big,
I just want
Bobby.
to say I'm just chatting
I know
too
it's a big-
lively because I wanted to
Real
pin
quick.
something. And
I
What'd you
know
wanna
it's a
pin?
big part of NBA defense now. I know that they did it successfully on New Year's Eve against this team, and I don't think it was a major problem tonight. But why is their defensive approach just hoping guys miss shots? We're going to let them take shots that we like, and we're going to take away certain shots. But we're not going to put up heavy resistance. We're not going to put pressure on the ball. There was no wrinkles on that side of the ball in this game. You didn't really see them show a zone look or, do some of the full court pressure that we've seen from them. They didn't force many turnovers. A lot of them that the Raptors committed were just self-inflicted. So they're just playing this super passive approach. I know John's talked about it a lot, and it worked for them at times last year. But, Jimmy, to me, that's something that a bad defensive team has to do. We have weak links. We have to hide some stuff. We're going to just, hide a guy on a bad shooter, maybe have him help. We're just going to take some stuff away and try to minimize the damage defensively. This is still, for all intents and purposes, that team we watched 3 years ago now in 2022 looked like one of the best defenses of all time. And you don't really have to go back that far. The defense last year was amazing. It was a big underrated part of their success. And instead of getting into the body, instead of scheming up some really aggressive ways to take guys on. They did it against Minnesota. I'll give them credit for that one. But more often than not, they're just hoping the worst player on the other team misses a bunch or giving up mid-range shots to guys and hoping that the numbers work out. They're basically playing an inverse of what they do on offense. And if someone's hitting a lot of shots like in the New Orleans game the other night, or the switching's not working like tonight, like there's got to be some other stuff you can go to on that end. And too often, all I'm hearing out of them is offense, offense, offense. We got to take the right shots. We got to get offensive rebounds. We got to do this and that to prevent it going the other way on defense. And in the half court tonight, Jimmy, you just got punched in the mouth.
Yep.
They went right
Over
to
and
the
over
rim.
again.
They cut. There was no awareness to cutters, which is a big trend in the NBA this year, obviously. A lot more cutting and a lot more handoff stuff and just reads on offense rather than premeditated stuff. They don't look ready, Jimmy, night in and night out. And that's on the coach. I'm sorry.
Mm.
How
Got
else
one
can you
quote.
explain the bad starts, too?
Can you help him,
Is
Noah?
that a rhetorical question? Because I can't explain it. But I got one quote here from John Corrales from Tatum. Quote, "We're going through some shit right now. It's tough, but we said after the game, we got to go through it together as best we can. Stick together."
Team
That's-
meeting.
That's the Tatum
Team
quote.
meeting.
Yikes.
Maybe
Noah.
that meeting that they didn't have, they should have.
Didn't have her.
I don't think they had it. Al was like genuinely confused.
Al
Damn,
wasn't
that's a hell of
invited,
a
maybe.
quote. That must have been on because I don't think John's at the game. I think they're just showing on the broadcast some of the.
That could be. Yeah, I mean,
clips from
I'm
the
just on
locker room.
Twitter, just reading.
I
through
know,
it.
but I want to
I
watch
think
these
Adam's
full.
there, it looks like.
I think it's just Adam.
Okay. Well, if I click on Adams, we already got the Porzingis
I'm
Yeah.
going on YouTube.
quote.
I wonder
he
what Joe
said.
Joe must have just said some
Tonight feels like shit
nonchalant
right
stuff.
now, and we played some bad basketball. That was the only. And I guess Porzingis also said they had no spirit and no personality.
I have a good
So,
tweet from John.
Not great.
That
thing.
half-ass shit from the Celtics might have worked against the 8-win Pelicans, but not the 9-win Raptors.
Wait,
Yeah.
Xanis?
That's a Xanis tweet. Yeah.
That's great.
Xanis, he will be here.
That's the
Friday
worst
night.
part, Jimmy, right? It's happening against some bad teams right now.
That is
Yeah.
that is the worst part. It's like it's happened against
Like,
bad
you can
teams. It
play
happens
bad
against
and get by.
it happens against teams without their best players. This team has issues. We've known this. They've had issues getting up for the non-big games, for the regular games, but not just the regular games recently because they lost to the Thunder. I mean, the Thunder that obviously was one of the biggest game of their
Did
season.
that
and
kind of
it's been
knocked them
shortened
back on
now.
their heels a little bit?
I mean, have they
Denver
played
the
good
next game.
since that game?
I like the Denver game, but they weren't at their best that night, certainly.
And then they didn't have Jokic. So that,
Yeah, they didn't have Jokic.
There you
Kings
go.
game was a disaster.
Horrible Kings game.
yeah.
You're right. So bad patterns right now. You don't love to see some of the quotes that are coming out. I mean, it's hard to just read them and not really, I like to hear them or at least see them and get a better idea of how they were said and stuff like that. But
I
this
think
is
what you can hope for right now, Jimmy, is you're probably going to sit Horford or Porzingis on Friday, get some Kata minutes in there, maybe play some guys deeper off the bench, get some energy, more emphatic effort from guys at home, against a beat up Magic team, and you pull one out there, and then Atlanta's even more beat up. I think again, deeper bench guys get involved that night.
how beat
that's
up
what
is
I want to
Orlando right
see.
now?
No Franz, no Mo. Suggs is still dealing with some stuff, I think. Gary Harris is out. They have a lot of guys out. Paolo's
half
back,
of their
but I'm sure
half of
limited.
their top 8 will be out for that game. So
Yeah, I think they had 8 guys available for their game tonight, I think. So they're beat up. Atlanta's beat up. Trey was out. Johnson was out. So those are good opportunities for you to get back on track. And then, Noah, from a chemistry perspective or whatever they're going from, that West Coast trip will be useful. And that's where I think we're going to see, all right, can they rally together, figure some stuff out on the road? It's a more extended stretch, I feel like, that they're going to be together out there in terms of days than the last one. And, just more games stacked up where they're healthy and playing together. And, I really want them to, and we've talked about it, Noah, assessing a lineup change. Should they do something like that? I get why they won't. But as you start to stack together more games, as you start to spend more time together as a coaching staff on the road, that's where they got to figure out all this stuff. And of course, the front office has to be looking at everything right now. You got a couple weeks left here, not a ton of flexibility, but got to fill that final roster spot with someone who can play at the very least. And, probably try to move some guys off the bench who can't play at all for you right now, and just swap some stuff in and out there, because I think that's starting to hurt too, that you just have a handful of guys on that bench right now who you just have zero interest in playing.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the bench thing is not the main issue, but it is something that they haven't benefited at all from, like, a boost from anybody other than Pritchard off the bench all season. And you want to have, like, the
Cornette.
Yes. No, but Cornette's different.
Sure,
Cornette's
sure.
different. He's like a regular part of the rotation. I mean, like an X factor type thing,
Okay.
where it's like, all of a sudden
Another
Delano
problem.
Banton goes off for 15 in the second half, and like you need something to,
I miss
even
Ban.
if it's not going to be consistent. That was really the move. Yeah. I don't know though. I'm really fascinated to see what's going to happen next, and I do think that people should remember still, like, this is the exact same team that won a championship in June. That wasn't that long ago. Nothing drastic has happened that we know of. Maybe we'll find out that something drastic happened, but that we know of, nothing drastic has happened.
A lot of stuff is just stacked up. Injuries, bumps and bruises, certain guys falling out of the mix.
But that's not what this is.
They're not hurt right now. They're not hurt. Like, the weird thing is they're actually healthy for the most part. Like, the starters
they're not hurt, Jimmy, but I think they're just banged up enough where they've been off, and it snowballed up.
Find me a team that isn't, though.
Holiday.
The whole point was that last year's team, you could be out 5 guys out of the rotation and they were fine. And the whole point of right now is that it quite literally doesn't matter who they're going to play. Like, they played the worst team in the league today, and it didn't matter. So it's less about personnel to me. It's more about what's going on in like a systemic level. And that's why I don't know if you could blame the coach, because in that sense, like, I guess it is kind of a coach thing. But I don't know. There might be, like, I saw someone in the chat said there might be, like, disagreement around, like, styles to play. Like, the league has changed from last year. Like, we know that the league has changed. The way the Celtics were being guarded this season has changed. And so it is possible that they're trying to figure out how to adapt to the fact they're being guarded differently. And there are multiple clashing opinions, and that's something that they have to work through. I don't think there's anything that's deep going on here. Like, I would be very surprised if there was, like, genuine bad blood on anybody in that locker room from everything that we've seen and covered this team. Like, I would not think that it's that, but we know in the past there's been things around, guys wanting shots or certain paces or playing a certain pace. Like, it's possible that there's something they're not all on the same page about, and that could be worked out too. And it might be something so minor that honestly, like, it won't even be perceived.
Yeah, and it's easy, Jimmy, to be on the same page, and Sherrod, when you're rolling through last season, right? But they've faced more adversity this year, and that's obviously going to splinter things a little bit, no matter who it's between.
Yeah, and the other thing that we really should be mindful of is that at the same point a year ago, they had 3 more wins than they have now. So it's not like they've fallen off this cliff and are just absolutely, hell bound for basketball purgatory. They're 3 games off the pace that they were on a year ago when they won a title. But the difference is that even though they have,
come on, Sherrod.
Look, Jimmy, can I finish? Jimmy, can I finish?
Come on,
can I finish?
Don't give him a break.
No, the difference is this year there are clearly more cracks in the armor than there were a year ago, and those cracks are Not only are they human, but they're flawed. I mean, that's right. Taking that humanity to another level.
They were superhuman last year, and now they're just human.
But now, I mean, you're looking at problems with the bench. You're looking at a disjointed look with the starting unit. You've got, Joe Mazzulla. You're not really sure what exactly is he looking to accomplish. You see a lack of flexibility, not only in terms of the way they're playing, but also the way they're being used by their coach. And it all adds up to a team that doesn't look as dominant as they did a year ago, a team that looks very beatable, and not just losing a game, but losing a series. It's not as inconceivable now as it was maybe 2-3 months ago that the Celtics could get beat in a best of 7. There was not a team in the NBA, no matter what the record said 2-3 months ago, that I felt that Boston wouldn't beat them in a best of 7. I think there's at least 3 teams that could beat them in a best of 7, and it would not, at this point, based on the way the Celtics are playing, it would not be a surprise.
OKC, Cleveland. Is there a third?
Yeah,
Maybe your
New
next
York.
Jimmy.
New York.
I was
Yeah.
wondering if
The
you were
only
gonna
thing
say
I'll
New
say
York.
about them is they are running their team into the ground.
They are, and they're gonna.
That's
and
Tibbs right there.
Yeah, to me, they're like a distant third among those 3 teams that I'm talking about. But OKC and Cleveland, absolutely would not be surprising.
Yeah, and again, we're what is it? 28 plus 12 or 40 games into the season, so we're not quite halfway, but we're about to be on Friday.
Yeah.
And this is where the Celtics are. 28-12, not a bad record, obviously. You know, they're
No.
sitting in second place in the East. But it's just, if you break it down a little bit, you know, further, the play as of late is the reason why you're not talking about a 28-12 team with the same, you know,
Right.
happiness or level of excitement that you typically would because of what we've seen of late. And I put a stat up there, 6 and 8 since Porzingis returned.
It's a weird one.
It is
It is
because
a
he
weird
played
He's
well.
mentioned it a few times that like he feels like his return has thrown things off a little bit just because he's trying to get back into shape, and you know they're playing together for the first time in a while. So in Noah, we talked about it. It feels weird because he's playing well individually, but the numbers say that they're amazing with Al starting at the 5, and they've been pretty bad with Porzingis starting at the 5, and it's a small sample so far. But at some point, I do think you have to look at it.
Your bench becomes insane if you
it
bring him off
doesn't
the
add
bench
up.
with Pritchard.
It doesn't add up, Bobby.
It doesn't
because
add
your
up,
issue
so I'm
is
not going
defense.
there yet.
Yeah, exactly. Your issue
No,
with
no,
him is
No, Al's a good defender.
Yeah. Noah, what you about to say, Noah?
Porzingis.
No, I was just gonna say it's tough because we made that video after the last game about Porzingis potentially maybe switching up the starting lineup and moving Porzingis to the bench. And again, they were down, by 10 in the first quarter today, and it just becomes like every game is this way. And then the second unit is helping them claw back out of the deficit, and you spending all that energy just to be down by 2 or up by 2 at the end of the first, whereas we're used to them getting leads in the first quarter. So I don't like the way they're starting games. It's hard to say if a shakeup would help. And I think there's a fine line of, on one hand, I would love to have seen Joe take all 5 guys off the floor today and put in a new 5, like old fashioned, like playground style.
Yeah.
Because it was just so hard to watch. Like you don't have to blame anybody. You don't have to be mad, but it's like this sucks. And we're not getting anywhere, and we look terrible. Let's put a new 5.
That's splitting the blame pie up into 5 equal pieces. By the way,
there it is.
That.
That's kind of what you did, Noah.
You have 15 guys on the team for a reason, right? You have to have the ability, like, to believe that they can come in and play basketball for a few minutes. So my point is that on one hand, that's what I would do, and on the other hand, I understand Joe's thinking of, I can't just like give up on this lineup, right? Like, I understand why he doesn't want to tinker with a 5-person lineup that should be the championship starting 5. And so right now, like, do you want to put Pritchard in there to infuse some energy? And he's one of the only guys that looks like he has any confidence with his shot. Like, sure, you could put Pritchard in as well, but I understand why he doesn't want to tinker with it too. So I get both sides, and it'll probably take a little bit of time before he has to make that adjustment. Like, it'll probably take a couple more weeks, and then he might have to do something if he feels like this starting group is like a constant thing where they're always starting on the wrong foot. But I get why he hasn't done it so far.
The All-Star break will be interesting because I think that's that point where if you're Joe Mazzulla, you have to really sit down and assess what are you going to be like as a team going forward for the rest of the season. Is that the time when you seriously break down the pros and cons of making a change and ultimately make a decision? I just don't see him doing anything along those lines at the earliest until right after the break. Because again, that will give him a chance to assess the situation and not be so moved by the actual games being played, but actually look at the situation in its totality and then make a decision from there. But if Joe is saying that he isn't giving it some thought, I mean, I don't see how you could not be giving it some thought. And it's not even so much about replacing player X with player Y or anything like that. It's just simply about shaking up your unit so that they can, as a team, you play better. That has to be the focus. And I'm not clear on just how much thought Joe's putting into that process.
I'm like trying to find quotes,
Did
footage.
Joe do a press
video.
conference tonight?
If he did,
I'm seeing zero reporting of it.
The only thing I've found is that one Porzingis and that one Tatum.
Yo, if I was on the ground in Toronto right now, I'd be live streaming.
You would be in there. You would be in there right now. But
every single word that was uttered would be on Twitter right now.
I wish that I could relay some quotes and some information coming
I
out of
did
Toronto.
what he always did, Jimmy. We'll take a look at it, and we like the shots and blah 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 blah.
I was even on I'm on like the TV stations here trying to see anything. Nothing. Crickets. So unfortunately, we don't have any other information to add off this one. But I mean, the one quote from Tatum is probably sums it up. What he had said earlier, which was basically that it sucks, but we're gonna go through it together. This is where they are right now. They're at a very big bump in the road. Worst loss of the season. 80% of you who voted agree. Worst loss of the season against the Toronto Raptors. I don't think we need to hammer this one all night, guys. I mean, they're gonna have to dust themselves off, get back to Boston, and get ready for another tough one. Is there going to be a practice or anything tomorrow that you guys know about?
No,
no practice. Just gonna friggin' toss the ball up there and do it all over again Friday. Love it.
No shooter on Friday either.
No shooter.
What? Really?
Yeah, we have no availability this week, pretty much.
We have no access.
But
just another day. Just another day for the Celtics, right?
To the Celtics beat. Yep.
Final thoughts. We'll go around one final thought from this game, and then maybe looking forward to any potential change you might see Friday or in the future, or nothing. We'll start with you, Sherrod.
Same old. I don't anticipate there'll be any type of tweaks of significance. I think they're just going to go into the next game, just say, we just got to play better than we did last week. And I think it goes back to what Bobby was saying, a lot of blah, blah, blah. We got to make more shots, that kind of stuff. And boom, we'll see what happens.
They got to figure out fast how they want to play. I think what Noah said there about how they respond to what other teams are throwing at them, what they want to do. I think that was all pretty evident in this game. There were some bizarre shots, strange approach and sets offensively, not a lot of passing on a string and stuff that made you think that they were going in a one unified direction. And when guys are playing individual basketball and not seeing success, I think that does bleed into the defense. So my hope would be that they would lock in defensively and grind out some games like this. But that doesn't seem to be the kind of team that they want to be. So it's got to come on the offensive end for this group. And it's got to be more than just knocking down threes. I like the post-ups early in this game. I like Porzingis' involvement for long stretches. And I want to see Tatum more involved because I think he's been that good this year. So that's all stuff that I think can happen. But it's got to be the players, because I don't think Joe Noah is the kind of coach who's going to really force his hand to try to change some stuff, whether lineup or stylistically here. Like I think a lot of the obvious energy is going to have to come from them, obviously, but also the way they want to play together and what they think is right to keep everybody involved and effective. And, some guys just got to play better. A lot of guys are just playing worse this year, and that's got to turn around.
Facts, my dog. Noah, any parting thoughts?
I'll just say, at the same time, as bad as this loss was, as bad as these 6 weeks have been, this group, this core has been together for years. And until we get credible reporting that there is something significant going on in there, or that there's something substantially bad, I don't think that we should overreact still to this stretch of time. Like, I think that it might just end up being a really bad stretch of basketball in an otherwise really good couple of years of basketball. Like that could end up being the reality here. So I can't say I can guarantee that. Like what do we know at this point? But I don't know that Joe knows. I don't know that they know. But I think I sense a lot of frustration, and I think that it is kind of fair to say that like they won a championship 6 months ago, and a lot of these guys like they pretty much maybe one thing I'll say is I don't know that they could look worse than they look today. And granted, the competition wasn't great, but
don't say that.
I don't know. I mean, maybe Porzingis and Pritchard could have been worse.
Challenge
but
accepted.
As a team, like the free throws, the layups, all of it it was just terrible. So I think they're going to look better. I think it's good to keep things in perspective and remember that this has still just been 5 bad weeks of basketball, and this is not a new group. Like there's a body of work to draw.
They're gonna have to. They're gonna have to re-inspire confidence. I can't just keep watching this all year and saying it's gonna turn around. They'll flip the switch.
I didn't say it's gonna turn around, but I said it's also.
No, I'm not saying you're saying that, but I'm not gonna.
It's more rational to say it's gonna turn around than to say trade Jalen. Like.
Yeah, I don't think that's valid at all.
So.
What did you just say?
No, the way you guys crop these videos.
Clip that. Amit, clip
also,
that.
being on the show is
do it, Amit. Do it.
Yeah, so I understand. I'm gonna start coming here PR trained.
We have one other take that we want to add to the show. Xanis couldn't be here, but he's still chirping away.
Did you write a letter?
Let's see it. What does he got here?
Oh, there's that tweet. That was a great tweet.
Here's angry. This is Boomer John, angry John tonight from his couch watching the game. Quote, this half-ass shit from the Celtics might have worked against the 8-win Pelicans, but not against the 9-win Raptors. Very true.
Winning that Pelicans game was not good for them.
Couldn't get away with this one. No, it was not good. It was not good for them at all. And that's how I felt about this.
You think it matters that they won?
Yeah, I think they came out of that feeling better than they should have.
It felt like a morgue, remember?
Us.
Yeah, but you can't criticize them the same. You can't
when the buzzer sounded, Al was like,
"Yeah, the same way." It doesn't. The criticism doesn't. We couldn't even play blame pie last game. We actually started to, and we were like, "Wait, we can't play it because they won." That's how bad of a win it was.
They were a little roll from losing after just unthinkable
McCollum
breakdowns.
Layup. Yeah, and that's the other thing. We'll leave on this, but the fourth quarters right now with the Celtics team are getting uglier and uglier.
Pull that up.
Can you pull it up before we go, just to see? We'll end on the fourth
January
quarter,
specifically. In the fourth quarter,
what do we got here?
They are currently a net negative 17.6, which is 27th in the league, worse than the Wizards, Jazz, Nets, and Hornets.
Oh.
Wow. I mean, that says it all right there. The fourth quarter performance, execution, whatever word you want to use, it almost can't be worse. I mean, you're talking about basement dwelling teams and then the Boston Celtics. So, you know what? We're going to end on that one. We're going to end on a sour note. I want everyone to think about that stat. Hopefully it doesn't keep you up too late tonight. But let's all shower this one off. Have ourselves a Thursday, get back out there Friday, and hope that it's a completely different Celtics team. Let's hope that the plane ride the Celtics take from Toronto to Boston is a quiet one. I want these guys to just be in their thoughts, figure it out, get back out there, play with some pride, play with some energy, play with some effort on Friday, and turn this thing around. We know what they're capable of, and what we saw tonight on that Toronto floor was, in a word, unacceptable. So, signing off, Jimmy, Sherrod, Bobby, Noah, Celtics drop 1 to the Toronto Raptors. 110-97. We will see you Friday against the Orlando Magic. Amit, hit me with the outro.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way.
Yeah.
Let's fight Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke an hour early. We are not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke